One of the things that Marco Rubio said, I think it was in his first days as in the Trump administration, was that we're no longer in a unipolar world, that we're in a multipolar world. And it would seem to me that there's a lot of resource grabs, essentially, or attempted resource grabs going on across the world in a lot of these conflict areas. I mean, I'm not saying that these are the absolute deciding and driving factors in a lot of these conflicts, but Ukraine is obscenely rich in minerals and resources. There's discussions that just off the coast of the Gaza Strip is hundreds of billions, if not trillions, in oil and gas reserves. I mean, there's probably people who would understand better the exact resources available, but are these collection of conflicts an attempt by these great powers to scramble for these resources across the world and to sort of move us back to a unipolar world where each person or each nation or collection hopes to be that king at the top?
Yes, but with some very large buts to what you just said, which I have to slightly rebut, if you don't mind. Thematically, yes, you've hit the nail on the head. First of all, in terms of multipolarity, now it is very important that Rubio said what he did. Let's just have a very brief discussion about that before I move on, really briefly. The US recently, for example, had to retreat from trying to bomb the Houthis, who are a ragtag rebel group or Islamist rebel group with really charming catchphrases, obviously being applauded in Western universities, he said rather cynically, but really not the most Western friendly of people, to put it mildly. But with a little bit of Russian help and some others, they've been disrupting traffic through the Suez Canal and the Red Sea for quite some time. The US was bombing them, and then it retreated. Now, you could make the argument that that's because they genuinely couldn't defeat them because they're running away to caves in the mountains, which they literally are, and they can continue to harass. And even the world's biggest military power can't get rid of them. Okay, let's take that as true. Not everyone would agree, but let's take that as true. Are they equal? When you say multipolar, are the Houthis equal with Americans? No. America could still wipe them off the face of the earth at the touch of a button. They choose not to for various different reasons, and I'm glad they do. The Houthis couldn't do that. Would the Houthis have the same moral qualms if they had the same ability? Probably not, which is an important moral distinction to make. But a power distinction is still very much there for America. And you can make the same argument right the way across different dimensions. In most of them, America, and particularly the combined West, when it can be combined, is still by far the most important pole or collection of economies or states in various different metrics, except one, which is physical production, where in terms of who makes what, physical goods, China is by far the winner. Absolutely. Far and away, which really does matter. So I don't think it's true multipolarity, but we're getting imbalances in different areas. For example, America is finding it can't produce F-35s because it needs rare earth minerals from China. Now, they're not rare at all. They have them in America, but they're only actually processed in China because it's polluting and cheaper in China. And so for many years, Wall Street geniuses said, let's put all of this particular resource, without which we have no military production, in the hands of a country which may not be our friend forever or may not ever have been our friend because it's cheaper. And of course, everyone in Western capitalism said that was a good idea. And the experts in financial markets I was being slightly mocking about earlier went along with all of that because this is the genius of, blinker thinking and only looking at one way of seeing the world. So that's the multipolarity one. I don't think it's quite the way it's described, but it is important nonetheless, and it does give a stronger hand to other countries vis-a-vis the US solo than we have seen for a long time. And the US is recognizing that. It can't be in the Middle East and in Ukraine and in East Asia at once. This is the key point. Choices have to be made. And when you have a coalition of forces against you, as we do now, they can collaborate across geographies and dimensions to make it really difficult for you. So that's something that's playing out. But I really have to address one other point very briefly, which is important, because while this sounds like it supports everything you just said, Ukraine is not rich in minerals. It's not. It's rich in agriculture.
Mm.
It's an agricultural giant, which matters. Don't get me wrong, that really matters. But if you're talking corn and wheat, rather than rare earths or gold or silver or whatever, or oil or gas, it's not quite the same thing. The minerals deal that Trump did with Ukraine, I believe, was a fig leaf to try and justify the fact that they will be, if they continue to support Ukraine going forward, and again, we'll unpack that in a moment, that they're seen to have some kind of quid pro quo, because Trump is trying to make clear they will no longer do what past administrations did, which is to throw trillions of dollars trying to nation build in countries which end up saying, no, thank you, and kicking them out. And after having fought a war, like in Afghanistan or in Iraq, etc., rightly or wrongly, after having fought a war and then tried to create a Western democracy there, you end up leaving with nothing and not even any business deals. And he's not wrong. No one historically has ever managed to run an empire or maintain one like that. That's the stupidest way in the world to do that if you want to. So Ukraine doesn't tick that box. But by offering something, the US may have a fig leaf to try and get more involved if it wants to. And in terms of Gaza, there's a bit of gas. There's a bit. It's a tiny fraction of what you were just saying.
Okay.
It's not enough to make the area rich. But both for Ukraine and Gaza, they are strategic in that they control access to some resources, but also to further territories. So if you hold Ukraine and you're the West, well, you're straight into Russia's soft underbelly, were you to want to do that. If you hold Ukraine and you're Russia, you're straight into Europe.
Mm-hmm.
If you hold Gaza, you're straight into Israel. If Israel were to control Gaza, that can't happen. But also it's very close to the Suez Canal, which is a real global choke point. So you're on the right theme, the right track, but it's not quite as cynical as some people try and understand and say, oh, it's all just about the money in Gaza and Ukraine. No, it isn't. It's about other things.
Good news, everyone. My book about GameStop, the craziest story ever told, is now finished. Well, almost. Still waiting for the final draft. So, in the meantime, I think you should look at pre-ordering it or any one of the multiple fantastic, beautiful t-shirts that I have designed in order to sell with the book. Thank you, everyone, for your patience over the last few years while I have been finishing it very slowly. And I am really, really excited for people to read it. Link is in the description below. Enjoy the podcast.